Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Program Yourself Thin podcast. Today, we're talking about anger eating and how it's affecting your weight. Anger eating is one of the more common emotional eating patterns I've seen, and it can really sabotage your weight loss. So, anger eating obviously is when you're eating when you're angry. And a lot of times, what triggers this anger is people that you're close to. Right. So a lot of times it's someone you might live with or someone you're close to. They don't do something you want that you want them to do, and you get angry about it. Okay. And that causes you to overeat. Now, the overeating is not the worst part of it. What's even worse about it is a lot of times when we get angry, we go into a certain state and we eat a certain way and act a certain way. And then when we come out of it, we kind of forget or are not as completely aware of exactly what we did. And so it has the double whammy effect of not only adding a lot more calories, but then we're not really aware of those calories because we're in such a negative peak state that we kind of lose awareness of what we did in that state. So anger eating is one of those things that can potentially be a real big problem with your weight. So you really want to look out for this. Again, when it comes to emotional eating, we don't want to just look at emotional eating as one big old bucket. We need to realize that there's different types of emotional eating, and anger eating is one version of that. So I say this to you so that you can start to more specifically see, is it a factor in my life? Because a lot of times it may be, and you may just be completely unawares of it. All right. So if anger eating is kind of an issue for you, you get angry at someone and then you end up eating in a way that you don't really want to, how do you deal with it? The first step is to become aware of it, to recognize it. The second step is to choose a better response. Okay. So once you realize what you typically do, I think it becomes obvious, but you can support this idea that I'm not really hurting anyone except myself when I act this way. Just because I get angry, I'm taking it out on myself. That doesn't make any sense. So I would like to respond in a better way. Now, you may not necessarily not be angry. So I'm not saying that you just all of a sudden magically don't get angry when people do certain things to you. What I'm saying is that when you get angry, you recognize it and that you start developing alternative strategies for when you're angry. It might be going for a walk. It might be taking a hot shower. It might be eating a piece of fruit. It might be drinking some water. It might be calling a friend. It could be anything that may work for you. But what is really helpful is when we start to identify and notice these patterns that happen, and then we start to go to work on solutions for them. All right. And once you start doing this and you start to get in the pattern of being able to recognize your anger eating and have better solutions for it, you start to resolve it. Okay. You didn't just stop yourself, but you come up with a better strategy. So this is definitely worth your time and energy to focus on this if this is an issue for you, and realize that just becoming aware of it's the hardest part and then resolving it's the easier one. So spend some time looking for it. If you have it, go to work on resolving it because it makes a huge difference in your weight. And if you have no idea how to kind of go about this, click the link in my bio, get the free hypnosis session I gave you, watch the video I made for you, and read the free emails I send for you. They're all free and they're all going to help you. So I hope this helps you out. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them because that's what we're here for. So let's see. I don't know if anyone. Let's see. Did I miss anyone? All right. Looks like I didn't. All right. So yeah, any questions at all about weight, feel free. I'm always happy to kind of meet you where you're at. I've been doing a couple of coaching calls this morning. Kind of started off kind of a busy coaching call morning, but I'm all about it. So right now, we talk about there's a lot of people out there probably feeling emotional, and the eating may not be doing great today, So again, I think it's helpful when we feel emotion, whatever emotion it may be, that we start to identify the emotion, because once we identify it, then we can go to work on figuring out how we want to feel. Right? And so we may realize Kelly said, eating my salad right now angrily. Fair enough. And sometimes we're trapped in the emotions to some degree. But again, this is what I was trying to say. It's not even so much that we're trying to not be angry. Do you understand what I mean? Like we're not trying to magically say, I'm not going to be angry about this thing that made me angry. We're not going that far, because that's just a whole nother level of making things challenging. It's saying, okay, when I get angry, how do I want to behave? So yeah, eating a salad when you're angry is a lot better than going and eating a whole pizza when you're angry. You see what I mean? So we're still angry, but we're just changing the behavior. And when you go about it this way, sometimes it's a nice, kind of baby step, to move us towards the weight loss and to deal with it. as best we can. So I get it. But because again, if we're angry and then we go and eat a whole pizza, now we're even just more angry because now we're angry at ourselves too. So when you get angry and eat a salad, at the very least, you're going to have, you might be angry about something, but then at least you get the salad, makes you feel better. And it really is. I will tell you, and I know I never believed this, and I always have to remind myself of this, that as angry or as upset or whatever emotion I may be in that state, it feels like it's so overwhelming that it'll never be able to change. But so often when you get in these peak negative emotional states, the littlest thing can sometimes be so profoundly impactful on it. And so, for example, I think Kelly's a great example here that we could be in the worst mood, we get pissed off, angry, but then we eat a salad. And just the salad, all of a sudden, it kind of breaks the trance a bit. He says, okay, I was angry, but I didn't let it affect my eating. Hey, look at me. I still ate good. Hey, even though I was angry, I still ate good. Things are going to be okay. So I think that's a big win, Kelly. I'm happy for you. And again, sometimes in life, you got to look for the little wins wherever you can get them. All right. And I think that's really helpful. There's Ken. Ken says, hey, look, Ken's got a picture now. Ken says, I'm in the 4th week of PYT mastery. Each day's message seems to be the perfect message at the perfect time. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. That's kind of how it's set up. It is, again, a very, very elegant, one of a kind hypnosis system. And it's probably the easiest way you'll ever lose weight. All you got to do is just sit there and listen for 5 minutes, and it starts to change you. It changes you physically, you calm down and relax, and it changes you mentally. You start putting lots of good ideas in your mind. And again, most of the time in this society and culture, it's not easy to find a place to get good, really good messages to put into our brain. It's certainly not about food and eating and our health and our happiness and all the rest of it. So I'm really glad that you feel that way, Kent. And again, good on you for actually listening to the session. So nice job. But yeah, the sessions and Program Yourself Thin, strategically designed and created to systematically implement a thin and healthy mindset into your subconscious mind in the easiest way possible. Because your behaviors, your eating flows out of your thoughts. I hope that's not a crazy idea. So if you change your thoughts, you're going to change your eating. That's how that goes. Very difficult to eat the same way when you think completely different. So yeah, that's why that program works. So nice job though. Nice job using it. Yeah, it's funny though, but I know we move into, now that the election's behind us, we move into the holiday season, and I suppose there's always anxieties around different seasons of time, right? But it's not about what happens to us. It's how we respond to it. I'm a big believer of that. And we can't, what do I say? You can't control the wind, but you can control the sails, right? So when life is kind of working against you from your perspective, I think it's important that you realize you have the ability to change how you respond to it. That's really what Program Yourself Thin is all built on, is that the most control we have is that we can influence our thoughts. We can influence how we think about things. And we can take something that seems like a big pile of turd and we can frame it in a way so that it doesn't impact us and feel terrible, and that's the power we have. And I think it's a very important one, because if we allow our reflexive ideas about things and we get caught in the emotions that creates, we get trapped and we give up our humanness, and I believe our humanness revolves around our creativity and our ability to influence how we think about things. That's what your greatest skill is, in my opinion, is that you can look at things in a way that supports you intentionally, as opposed to a way that just destroys you. And sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder. I get that. But we always have that ability to be able to have influence over how we think about things. So I hope that helps people out in some way, because that is probably the most important thing about weight, right? Is that, again, you think about, you're struggling with your weight because you're struggling with certain foods, right? You find yourself overeating certain foods, like having intense cravings for certain foods. And those intense cravings are hard to fight against. That's what you've been doing. But instead of just fighting against the cravings with your willpower, which is the diet approach, you can go deeper and influence the way you think about the food on a subconscious level so that you don't have the level of cravings for those foods. And so again, in Program Yourself, then we call it a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. So most dieters are using a top-down approach where you're using your willpower to fight against all the cravings you have for food. Where at Program Yourself, then we're using a bottom-up approach where we're changing the way we think, the way we live, and the way we eat in order to change the cravings we have for food. And so willpower is not as necessary. We don't need as much of it. So that approach really does kind of set you up for much longer term success as well. So that usually works a lot better. But all right, I got too many questions today, so maybe that's a sign to cut this one short. If anyone's got any questions, any weight related questions, feel free to ask them. I'll kick them in, but if not, we'll cut it short. People might be kind of tired out. Late night for some people, I suppose. So Rebecca says, appreciate the boost. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for, trying to boost people up in their situations. And, again, when it comes to the weight, you could feel so discouraged and feel like it's the end of the world, but it's not. Sun rises tomorrow. It's another day. The days keep going, hopefully. And so as long, as we wake up, it's another day. It's a good day, and that our brain a lot of times, well, let me just talk about this real quick, that our brains, we are all born with a negativity bias. Okay. Meaning that over millions of years of evolution, to see things with a negative bias first, to value in negative things are more important than positive things, right? That was valuable for our survival. It was more important to remember where the lion was than where the beautiful flower was. Okay. And so all of us at this point have a negative bias installed into us biologically when we're born. And so when things happen in life, our brain tends to create a very, very negative idea of things. And the weird thing about this is that a lot of times our brain's always doing this. It's always thinking kind of worst case scenarios, the worst situation. And it does this kind of naturally and we get caught up in it. But a lot of times what we don't do is we don't regulate this bias. Meaning a lot of times when we actually get into the situation and it wasn't as bad as we thought, we don't look back and say, oh, you know what? My brain tends to magnify the negative stuff. So the next time my brain starts to magnify the negative thing, I'm going to remember this and I'm going to dial it down a little bit. I'm going to realizing that I kind of exaggerated it by 40%. The next time I do this, I'm going to dial it down by 40%. I'm going to remember that a lot of times the worst case scenario I thought didn't come to pass. And it reminds me of a quote that I think of probably every single day, that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a hero one. Meaning that our brain can generate unlimited awful scenarios, worst case scenarios. And so we can think of 1,000 ways to die, but we're only going to die one time. So that's what that means. And so when it comes to our life, our brain can just consistently forever generate negative ideas of things. And just by numbers alone, most of the time, those negative things never come to pass. But our brain doesn't self-regulate that and say, you know what? I actually over exaggerate it by a large percentage. So from now on, when I over exaggerate things, I want to recognize that. And I want to remind myself that I usually think of things being worse than they actually end up being. And I've found that to be a profoundly helpful concept, because my brain still naturally generates all the negative worst case scenario responses. But now I have another part of my brain that says, Jim, this is what you do. And most of the time, thank God, so far, things have almost never, sometimes they are the worst case and that sucks, but almost never is it the worst case that my brain's imagining. And so I remind myself of that in the beginning. And I say, listen, if it's the worst case, I'll deal with it then. I'm not going to live in my imagination, and I'm not going to live in the imagination of the worst case constantly, so that I can not only have to deal with the worst case, but then like all that time before it, I was living in the worst case too. Okay. And there's a difference between, things are worst case and I'm going to strategically align myself to deal with it in a positive mood and a positive mental state. That's a different process rather than living in the gloom and living in the worst case scenario. Everything's the worst case scenario. Again, your brain naturally does that. I get it. My brain does that. But I've learned to kind of balance it out a bit by reflecting on the fact that most of the time the negative shit I thought of has not come to pass. Thankfully, and when it does happen, I've found a way to deal with it. So take it for what it's worth, right? Look at that. Yeah. Camp Poltoka says, hi, Jim, sitting in the sun on a park bench, breathing and relaxing my shoulders. Beautiful, right? That's what you want to do. And again, if you're in Program Yourself Thin, this is when you really, times when you're stressed out and frustrated or, in a negative peak emotional state, that's when you use all the skills that you're developing, your ability to calm yourself, relax yourself, bring yourself inside and, you know what I mean? Ground yourself. The reality is that for you, most of, again, there's that negativity thing, that your absolute reality right now is not different at this moment in time, So again, if things change, deal with it then. But in the moment, usually things aren't as bad as we're making them out to be. And when we realize that, it opens up more space for us to, at least right now, relax, calm down, and live in the gratitude. Again, I always say that with the 8 habits of the PYT, the gratitude one. And sometimes gratitude is most useful when you're kind of feeling at your lowest. There's always something to feel grateful for. And when you're able to feel gratitude in worst case scenarios, or what feels like worst case scenarios, I find that, again, to be another helpful tool. So anyway, some things that might help you all out today. And I hope they do. So yeah, I really drank and ate a bunch last night. Now, that'll happen. Again, at least you understand it. You know what I mean? So yeah. Okay, here's a good question. We'll get to this one. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. D says, can you explain how you can lose the weight without exercising? I always feel like I need to do crazy workouts. Yeah, this is a great question. And I love this one so much because you absolutely do not need to exercise at all. Right. And what this question represents in my mind is, and don't take this personally, but it exhibits a lack of understanding of how to lose weight. And that's good news. Okay. Because that's most people. They don't really understand weight loss. And so they're confused and they're flummoxed and they fall for pretty much anything that happens, right? Because they don't really understand it. So listen, to lose weight, it's very simple. You just need to reduce your calorie consumption. So your weight is a reflection of your average calorie consumption. Okay. And if you want to lower your weight, you need to consume more calories or you need to work out more, right? So again, you have to think of it as an energy balance. Okay. And so you have the calories you average consume and the weight you typically are at, right? And then there's the calories burned, right? So calories in, calories burned, your weight. And the easiest way to reduce your weight, the mathematically most successful, effective way, is to reduce the calories that you're bringing into your body. Meaning it's a lot easier and faster to avoid putting 500 calories into your body than to burn 500 calories off of your body, right? It takes 2 seconds to say no to the donut or the cake, and it takes 2 hours to work that off. So mathematically, you're always going to be better off at getting good at mastering your eating than you are being the crazy workout person, because ultimately you cannot out-train a bad diet. So again, what we want to do to lose weight is we want to reduce the average calories that we're bringing into our body. And the way to do that is to really master your eating. And so working out, again, I'm not against working out, and exercising has lots of benefits, but when it comes to weight loss, I very rarely recommend someone to start exercising a lot. Now, if you already exercise a lot, that's a different story. But if you haven't exercised for a while and you want to lose weight, the last thing I'm suggesting to you is to start working out hard. Because if you start working out hard and you start focusing on that, again, mathematically, you're not really set up for success. But more importantly is the negative effects of working out intensely to start with. You're going to be more tired. You're going to be more sore. You're going to be hungrier. Okay. And so those are the big 3. And then there's the licensing effect of when you feel like you did something good, so I can reward myself a little treat. And very often we go down that path. We burned 200 calories. We think we burned 500 calories and we're going to have a muffin that's 200 calories, but in reality, we burned 200 calories and the muffin's 500 calories. So that's another thing that happens in our mind. So To me, I would rather take the energy initially, and instead of taking that energy and putting it into doing crazy workouts, I want to dedicate that energy to getting a hold of my eating strategically. Because again, that's a much better strategy mathematically and long term. If you're relying on crazy workouts to manage your weight, how long are you going to be able to do that for? In your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s, in your 70s, in your 80s? Are you going to be able to keep that up? What happens when you get injured? So if you're building everything around working out and burning calories, I think you're really setting yourself up for failure long term. I think that the golden road of mastering your weight is really getting a handle on the eating. It's the easiest, in my opinion, best way to kind of do it. So that's my thoughts on that. So what's up, Miss Independent? How's it going? All right. So I think we got to throw the questions. Not too many questions today, and that's okay. All right, everyone. So I'm going to wrap it up. If you're not in my world, please go to my bio, click the link, get the hypnosis session I give you. It is free. Watch the video I made. It's free. Read the emails I send. They're free. They're all going to help you out. Okay. So if you're even remotely serious about your weight and getting a handle on it, go get those things. I give you free stuff as well on top of that. So I'm here to help you out. And this is a podcast I actually record and put up there. So I am here usually Monday through Friday around noon Eastern live. If you have any questions, feel free to hop on here and ask them. And if you miss it and want to listen to the replay, you can search Program Yourself Thin on any of the podcast platforms, and it's there. And geez, what are we up to? Almost like 430 episodes. So there's a lot of episodes too. If you want to listen to those, they could be helpful for you. And if you don't follow me, whatever social media might be on, if you're listening to this and you like any of the things I'm saying, follow me, because you never know when my videos might pop up. All right. It might help you out. So thank you, everyone. Have a super duper day, and we will talk soon. Bye, everyone.